Okay, just one housekeeping note. Just show of hands if you were at Easter Vigil this year. Easter Vigil. Okay, great, good. This is good. This is really good. Because we need to clarify something that happened. I was falsely accused of not knowing about women's makeup. And there was a moment where I was told that it isn't pancake makeup, it's concealer. And I was aggrieved. It was a hard thing. I had just gotten over it recently, that I would not know these things. And then I'm doing the New York Times crossword puzzle, and what is 60 down for the Sunday crossword puzzle? Pancake makeup. There you go. Okay? So I have been restored to my sense of self-worth, and I just wanted to put that in everyone else's faces. Yes, so yeah. Maybe just to touch up a little blemish there on y'all. Good. Okay, good. So, thank you. Yeah, girl. Okay. Was that a dad joke? Kind of? Yeah, okay, good. I got it. Great. All right, so picture this. I'm 5 years old, and I've got my black bike with training wheels on it, and I'm on the patio, and I'm cruising around like a little guy, got the shades on and everything. And I go, since I know how to ride a bike now, clearly, to put my foot down on the pedal, but I miss the pedal and end up wedging my leg between the bar and the chain. I know. I know. And the babysitter that was looking after my sister and myself was just kind of shocked. She's like, okay, can you get it out? Right, mom and dad are at work. It's the summertime, or probably around this time of year, and we can't get my leg out. She calls the neighbor, the lady across the street, who says, well, I'll be right over. Oh, thank goodness, she's coming for help. She decides to rub Crisco all over my leg, thinking that we can spring my leg out. Instead, this pale, pasty self is roasting in the summer sun. I've got a little chicken leg going on here. Babysitter understandably did not want to make the call, but she did. She called Dad. Dad came back in the midst of all the things that he was doing so that I would have food on the table, et cetera, and Dad took the chain off. When I was able to see Dad, I was like, Daddy! Just like relieved, because I'm like, what are these ladies doing to me? But just recognizing that that's a father's job. A father's job is to take off the chains. And I pray that you have at least a memory like that where you can say, you know what, he was able to help me take off the chains. Whatever that is, that I had a dad that was able to help and provide for me. Unfortunately, we live in a society where that is not the case for everybody. A friend of mine sent me an email or like a text, a screenshot of an email from Nespresso. I thought, why are you advertising to me? We're friends. I'm more of a Keurig guy myself. And he said, no, look at this ad. He said, it's really sad and sorrowful because Nespresso had this ad where it said, Father's Day is coming up. Do you want to opt out of our Father's Day advertising? Because we recognize that it's hard for so many. And my friend wisely said, they didn't do that for Mother's Day. You know, so what is it about our society and our world where we have men who unfortunately, through whether it's their own hurt or their maybe surrendering of responsibility as dads, aren't able to be the fathers that we need, the fathers that we really long for. And if that's you, I just want you to know that we are praying for you, and we hope that you might be able in some way to know of the great compassion that the church has for you and the great love that the church has for you. Maybe there's stuff in your family life where it's not perfect. And sometimes it's like, oh, Dad, you know, it's a little bit difficult. I'm praying for you in this way so that it's not just a day that you have to get through. You know, because unfortunately there are people that aren't coming to church today because it's just too hard. And I would say that those of you who maybe have longed to be fathers, but for whatever circumstance in your life haven't been able to have a fatherhood in a sense that we would call someone a dad or a father, I would encourage you, men, to be able to look into your hearts and to see that if you look closely enough, God has put people in your life that you have been paternal to, that you have fathered. Maybe not in the cradle sense of the word, but that you are able to use the gift of who you are as a man to be able to provide for other people. And maybe if you can't find that, maybe just ask the Lord to show it to you, to reveal it to you. Because we have a God who transcends gender, but reveals himself to us as Father. And I think sometimes this is where I really get aggrieved for all of you, is that sometimes we do not allow God the Father to love us as Father because of some of the hurts that we've had from our dads or from men in the world. And sometimes maybe that love is the invitation to provide healing and peace and perspective. Because God the Father's job is to remove the chains. God the Father sees how you are wedged in between places where you're not supposed to be. And he says, would you please let me love you there? Because all the amount of Crisco, as good as Crisco is not going to be able to get it out. I, the Father, long to lift that chain for you. Hear God say to you today, will you let me? Will you allow me to do this out of love for you? Not that it's all better, or not that it didn't happen, not that those circumstances are somehow erased from our lives, but that maybe just by that openness, just a little bit, something powerful can happen for you. And then you, having received healing of that, maybe that identity lie or that father wound, then you can be able to share that with other people. Yeah, I used to not be able to even pray to God the Father because I just thought of beards and lightning bolts and judgment in Old Testament. And I forget and have forgotten, but no longer forget and no longer want to live that way, that God removes the chains by sending us his Son. What love the Father has for us, we hear St. Paul say. And that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And that Jesus on the cross is able to lift out his arms and he says, I don't want you to suffer alone anymore. I don't want you to have to carry this by yourselves anymore. Because even the most seasoned among us, elders in the room, etc., are still children. You know, we're like tiny... Sorry, someone's playing video games. We're like a tiny thumbnail in our age compared to the reality of how old God is, because God is always has been, always will be. And so for us to just be able to, in some way, take a step forward in faith and to start to allow God to love us as a father, it might just change your whole understanding, your whole encounter. Maybe you can talk about what it's like to be a dad, those dads in the room, and talk to the Lord about that, and just to give thanks. Say sorry for those areas where, yeah, maybe you weren't able to love as you wanted to because of your own hurts or because of circumstances. Fine. But then also the rest of us in the room, maybe we can give gratitude for those who've loved us with a father's heart, or those of us who've had dads that have been able to provide for us. Thanks, Dad, for lifting the chain. Still grateful. I'd still be on that patio without you, you know. but in the middle of that, to know that there's something beautiful that God has blessed us with and wants to continue the conversation. This gospel, mustard seed, I'm going to not talk about the ear of the corn because I grew up on a cul-de-sac. I don't really understand those analogies. But the mustard seed, I get. Because what Jesus is saying is, if you have just the tiniest bit of faith, if you have just the tiny bit of willingness to let God love you where you're at, it can grow into the largest of plants. I read a reflection in preparation for this about how the kingdom of God can be big or small. If the kingdom of God is the mustard seed, well, how can the kingdom of God be small and then big all of a sudden? And the writer, she said that the gift that we have in understanding this is the kingdom of God grows in us and our capacity to receive the love of God the Father and to receive the love of the Son. And in that way, having this nurturing parent who provides for us, we're able to know that the kingdom of God is at hand now, and that even in the midst of our weakness and frailty and suffering, we can live with our heavenly creator and sustainer. So I just pray that maybe today could be that moment for you where God the Father lifts the chains, or at least you see God the Father entering onto the patio and trying to love you where you're at.